everybody, welcome back live at Drew's House, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Hope you're all doing well as we race on through September. My guest today is John Frates, the father of the late, great Pete Frates, who we lost in 2019 to ALS. And I don't even really know how to say this. I was thinking about the million ways I could enter the show with you, John, but your son had such an impact on people. Of course, my age, he was a couple of years older than me, but younger, older, he's just done so much for ALS research and also just people knowing about ALS. I didn't know what it was when I learned that Pete Frates had ALS, and I learned after I Googled it when I saw him. So I guess we'll start there.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me, Drew. I think about Pete all the time, and I remember reflecting after we got the diagnosis immediately afterwards, and I said, this guy's the most compelling person I know. How in the world can I get that message out there? And I had no idea the impact of social media and what was about to transpire.
I think part of it, I know we've talked about this off the air, but he was just such a great athlete. He was strong, he was fit, he was a big guy. And that's, when he gets diagnosed with ALS, he's still showing that. He's all that. That guy has ALS. What? And I think that helped connect for so many people. Just the cruelty of that disease. That body, this disease is going to attack.
You're 100% right. Why is it that a gifted athlete who cherished and revered his body and his talent comes down with a neurologic disease that attacks the physical gifts he was bestowed? We lost our father-in-law recently to Alzheimer's, who was a brilliant academic guy, and I'm convinced that taxing your body too much or taxing your brain too much might lead to these neurologic disorders. Just something I'm working on. So for me, I'm taking the Jimmy Buffett approach.
Right. May Jimmy rest in peace too. That one surprised me the other day. It seemed like Jimmy I was not ready to hear that one, but so you have all these moments with Pete at the end, and I watched you guys like from a distance. This is the first time we've met today in person, but I watched you guys from a distance, and I was like, man, look at all the Dad's always there. This is like, I think maybe you can explain it in your own words, but there was some real quality time that you spent with Pete in those really hard years.
I just couldn't believe what a specimen he was, especially as a young guy. I used to call him Farm Boy because he could just pick up anything and take it here, take it there. And he wanted to actually hang with me while we were doing physical labor, whereas my other two, they could take it or leave that stuff. But later on in life, when he's doing all the fun things, going out to parties and the bars afterwards and meeting all these great people, and his network was so powerful and strong, he always wanted to include us. And that's what I love and miss about him so much too.
Yeah, you think about him every day, I'm sure.
Of course.
I think you said, is you're wearing his shirt, right?
Yeah, it's
a great logo.
His shirt and his watch.
His watch. So, there you go. He must have been laughing at you when you were late, because I know you drove to Ipswich by accident.
Well, he just wants to give me a kick in the where, because I'm the most technologically unsavvy guy there is.
John, apparently there's more than one Main Street in Massachusetts. He ended up in an ice cream shop in Ipswich, I think you said, right?
Yeah, I'm going to head back there because I think I have a tab going.
It's a good day for ice cream, no doubt about it. Speaking of networking, I know another relationship I got to watch. I've known Ray Bork since I was a kid. He was my Little League coach. Is the fun story on that one. I played with his son Chris, but I know Ray became very close with Pete, and with that we have the Captain's Ball in honor of Pete Frates, which is coming up September 21st. There's the nice little flyer there, but what a thing this is. This has become a whole big bash and a great fundraiser. There's celebrities, there's party, it's a band. Tell me a little bit about this night.
Yeah, this is a pretty remarkable thing. We're so flattered and honored to work with the Borks. They've had things in the past, but they really latched on to Pete. Pete and Ray are very similar in that they were born on the exact same day, December 28th. They were both hockey players. Pete was captain of his sport in college, but they just had an incredible bond that's going to this day. So that night, we're going to have, it's going to be very dressy, so black tie is suggested. It's nothing I would wear, but anyway, the ladies love it because they get in gowns and they wear beautiful clothing. But it's open bar all night, incredible food, a great band called Beach Nights, formerly known as Bear Fight, and that night we have a special guest. Rob Gronkowski and his girlfriend Camille are going to talk about ALS and how it's impacted them as well. So a lot of incredible value. The Bruins players are all there. They are the nicest, most generous, easygoing. They don't want to be segregated as some of the other sports players would be if they're very fragile. These guys are one of us. They're part of the family. So it's a beautiful thing to experience and witness.
Yeah.
And last year we had 600. We're hoping for at least 800 this year.
That's real. And the Bruins teams of like recent years too, they've in particular been great. Like the last decade, the Bergeron-led teams, the Chara-led teams, that group of guys, like just media people love them because they're just the easiest to kind of deal with.
Look, leadership. Ray Bork, a tremendous captain, so they were very magnanimous and generous with their time. Patrice Bergeron really rallied those guys to be there. There's former players, current players. But my son Pete also being a tremendous leader and networker, he would tell us, we were at first his arms and legs, and then later on his voice. But he set the tone. He told us the night of diagnosis, let's strap on our work boots and get to work. Those are the exact words he used. He also used a word that I haven't heard in a long time called wallowing. There will be no wallowing with this disease. This is what I got. I've come to peace with this, and we're just sitting there reeling, going, what in God's name is this journey that we're about to embark upon? What is this? But that's exactly what it turned out to be, as a journey. A defined beginning, a defined end. I'm not a fan of the band, but that's exactly what we ended up dealing with.
I love that. Not a fan of the band. It is a different breed to take on that approach, that glass half full. I mean, obviously, this is the kind of guy that was captains of the sports teams, and you know, he's a great leader of everyone, and we've now know that even more so now. But I think when you're, I don't know, to take that approach for this thing, that this is the worst news you can get. You know, it's a horrible disease, and to get that and say, listen, this is what it's going to be in a kitchen, or I don't know, wherever you were in the living room, to say that to, you know, you must have just been like, how is he processing this better than I am? This is unbelievable.
You know, the batting average for this is 0.
Yeah.
We were praying for spinal cancer because at least that is the worst of these terrible diseases, but it has a 3% cure rate. So here we are praying that night, because we had to go back for some further testing, that pray to God, take this badge off of me. It's not ALS. Well, guess what? I really do feel that he was chosen for this. The doctor kept saying, Parkinson's has its Michael J. Fox. What this underfunded, underserved disease space needs is a Michael J. Fox. And later I'm saying to myself, but ma'am, woman, lady, this is Michael J. Fox right here. You don't know it yet, but he is going to be.
I mean, he took over that when that ice bucket challenge. I'm a few years younger than Pete was. So I'm living in Brighton. That's my first kind of paying rent out of college, my first kind of real place. And there is not a person that I knew, my age and then younger, older, I mean, everybody I was in life with had done the ice bucket challenge, or was at least passing it off to the next person. That's how you did it, right? You passed it off to 3 people. Right. You donated some money. You say, these 3 people, I challenge you to do it. And that was the ice bucket challenge. I had a police officer throw ice water over me for the ice bucket challenge. And then some middle school kids started asking me questions about it. And I said, I got to go look up more about this. And that's what I did, you know? That was the whole kind of point of it, though, right? It was more than just the money. It was he wanted people to know about the disease. I had to go back and look it up. I think people older than I think my dad had to go look up information. He wanted to know too, you know?
Yeah, when you look at Pete's very first Ice Bucket Challenge, you'll see that he never says, look up this particular website or fund this particular research or support group. He wants people to get knowledgeable. That's the most powerful thing he can get. He was really that thoughtful, that knowledgeable. He was all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, think about what's your favorite story? Just, I saw you. I know you were hanging out in dugouts with Pete. You got to kind of hang with the boys a little bit, which must have connected you guys in a whole different way.
You know, we'd watch games together, and this is before ALS. But he'd come and visit us for a long weekend. We had the pool. and we'd be watching any type of sporting game except for basketball, and he'd say, I played with that guy, I played against that guy, and I'm like, that is such crap. I'm so sick of this. And sure enough, once the Ice Bucket Challenge started happening, and our name can be mangled, Frates, Frates, and they all said, this is in honor of my good friend Pete Frates. And they said it perfectly. I'm like, oh my God, he knew these people. But I think the story you're alluding to is, when he started to decline, we're traveling with the BC baseball team, and that third year when we were traveling, we had such a wonderful experience. The first year he couldn't open the packets too well. Second year he was on a scooter. Third year he was confined to a wheelchair. I was brought into the dugout because in case he has to go to the bathroom, in case he needs to be fed, this is what has to happen. And he said, listen, you were never a ball player. You never will be a ball player. You keep your mouth shut in that dugout. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. All these kids are fooling around in here. I can fool around. So that I ended up having the greatest time ever. Yeah. But that he reminded me that I was not worthy.
Oh, that is, there's a code amongst those guys, right? When they've been there.
Yes.
It is funny. Again, we're joined here by John Frates, father to Pete Frates. I've heard you say that your other two kids, it almost brought the family closer together, this experience in a way. And just elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. The disease doesn't just strike the patient, and we call them PALS, patients of ALS. It strikes the entire family. So there's so much hardship that goes on here. The woe is me. Why is this happening? The financial burden is overwhelming to take care of a patient, especially in their own home. And the stresses that would go on just amongst family members as to, whose turn it is to do this, do that, whatever. So it became a very difficult challenge. Pete, as I mentioned before, allowed us in his life. He wanted us to be there with him at all times, the good times, the bad times. The other two kept us at an arm's length. They didn't really want us in there. But now that he's gone, we've really solidified our relationship. And as I told him many, many times, the time I spent with your brother, and I have no regrets about what we did because we spent maximum amount of time with him. But for the rest of my life, I'll never be able to equal the amount of time that I've already spent with Pete. So that's the blessing in this, in a hindsight, that we're tighter as a family, but there's still so many families that are reeling from this devastating thing. And we have a registered 501c3 now. If you go to petefrates.com, you will see our family fund, and we've been quite successful at giving out grants to those people who are just like us, trying to figure out how do we keep these people. We're not trained caregivers. We're not social workers. We have no idea. We've been given this burden out of nowhere, and you're expected to rise to the occasion. Some people can, some people can't. There's no judgment here. It's just whatever we can do to help. Pete he made us promise that we would keep this cause, his mission, alive.
And you think about, despite all the fact that everybody knows that name now, Pete Frates is a legend around here. Nobody will ever get that name wrong again. But despite all, there is that whole financial thing of how much money. There was records at the beginning, like that, the biggest amount of money I think raised in a however many week span. It was incredible. I don't know if you know those numbers, but they were wild, weren't they?
Yeah. The Ice Bucket Challenge raised over $20 million worldwide in 6 weeks. The end of the year happened, they just stopped counting it. So it became instantly, even though it started in August, the #1 Googled search on ALS, and everybody else had 7 months head start. So it was a very powerful dynamic.
Everybody was doing what I was doing. They were learning about it, right?
Exactly, and that's what Pete wanted.
And that's a lot of this money here from the gala will go to that. I know you can buy tickets to this, right? This is the
we want to blow
21st.
This thing out. It's such a great thing.
This is right at the main entrance to the garden there. There's this new, not really new anymore, Big Night Live. I think it's new to me because, I don't know, something during the pandemic. I wasn't heading to the garden as much, I don't know. I just hadn't been to a Bruins game in a little while, and they have rebuilt that whole area. It's crazy beautiful now.
It's awesome. It really is. It's so fantastic, and it's so conducive to what we're doing because it's large enough but it's intimate enough, if you know what I mean. It's just great.
our mutual friend, Francois Samard, he'll be all over me if I don't say he's opening for the band you mentioned. The band you mentioned again was, say it again?
It is Beach Nights Band.
Beach Nights, all right. So Francois is doing a half hour before them.
Yes.
Sorry, Francois. I made sure to get that
And he's
in.
bilingual, so it's going to be in all different languages.
Sometimes he speaks French to me. You know I don't speak French. You know this, don't you? But my favorite French-Canadian friend. But this will be a great night, Thursday, September 21st.
Yep.
Every time I saw you and Pete together, it was like... I'm sure part of it, Pete became a spokesperson and a showman a little bit too. I'm sure he wasn't always feeling great when he did a lot of those things, but every time I saw you guys, it was like a smile, and he knew he was the face of this thing, and he put on that show, whether he was having a bad day or not. I know you got to see all those bad days. Mm-hmm. What was that roller coaster like?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, because we're living in the high space when we're being honored by the Red Sox with a lifetime contract, or Robert Kraft is singing him happy birthday on his 30th birthday at a Patriots game, or we're in the bedroom and some of the nastiest stuff is going down medically. The hospitalizations, and I would crave that middle space, but it would never be. It was always the highs and the lows. So when you're in your low space, you think and ponder fondly the high things that are happening, and the lows are very difficult. But he knew he was chosen for this. He knew it.
And, your son Andrew. For some reason, I connected with him a lot. Because I think I've told you, I can't put myself in a father's shoes of losing a son, but I do have a sister, and I can think to myself that would be really hard for me to go through that with the person I grew up with. Like, it must be really hard. And you mentioned the whole family, but for some reason, he always resonated with me. And I know you said you spent a lot of time in that room with him because he wanted to be there with his brother. I know, whereas maybe your wife, that was a different way to grieve. It was painful for her to go in. Talk about that dynamic with Andrew.
Andrew is a rock star in all of this, because he always idolized his brother, of course, but I could see jealousy creeping in. If Pete was the superstar and Andrew was very good, but he just wasn't as gifted physically, he wasn't as big, powerful as Pete was. So he never was ever jealous of Pete, and the love that he demonstrated when he was caring for Pete, the way he talks about him reverentially, it's just the most beautiful dynamic. So hats off to both Andrew and Jennifer for what they've done to help Nancy and I through all of this.
And a grandfather now you are. That's been the joy in recent years.
So Lucy was born there in our house.
Yeah.
And, at that time I was putting him to bed, and it seemed like an impossibility that they should conceive, but hey, miracles happen. We had the miracle of Lucy, we had the miracle of the Ice Bucket Challenge, which still to this day is the largest viral sensation in the history of mankind. So miracles were abounding at that time, so we cherish that. And we're going to see all four of them this afternoon at a big Ice Bucket Challenge we're doing at Endicott College.
You're still doing them. How many do you think you've done?
Well over 200. So, every time I look at that ice water, I'm like, it's not that bad. And sure enough, it is that bad. But that momentary bit of pain and suffering pales in comparison to how these ALS patients are suffering.
Yeah. I mean, you must, honestly, I'm not kidding about this, you must be the most Ice Bucket Challenge man out there, right? I can't imagine anybody's done more of them than you.
I'm an expert on only two things: taking Ice Bucket Challenges and watching Ice Bucket Challenge videos. So I've seen just about every one. You
get to a point where this thing became so big, and he became an icon, not only in Boston, but not only in this country, around the world, right? You actually, that's a big point too. You talked about how the rest of the world resonated with this and connected with this, and there's even some medical connections. Elaborate on that a little bit, because
sure. We started getting on, for instance, I did an interview on Japanese TV.
Wow.
This was so viral, and I could not say no to anyone who made a request, because who knows if somebody within the sound of my voice might be the person who could figure this out, or somehow has the wherewithal to fund something that could figure this out. But we flew overseas, and what we discovered is that they were using the term MND, motor neuron disease. Mm-hmm. They didn't really even associate that ALS over here in the States, so a collaboration and an effort happened. So with the Ice Bucket Challenge money, there's been 2 drugs approved by the FDA. That hasn't happened in 30 years. So we're very, very proud of what Pete and his mentor, Pat Quinn, twin who tagged him originally.
Yeah.
If you ever really want to get down and dirty on it, ESPN followed Pete for 2 years. A great documentary called Pete's Challenge. That's on YouTube right now.
They do a great job. That's like the 30 for 30 things and all that.
Yeah.
I think with the BC connection, I have mentioned on the show many times, I watch that Wells Crowther one every September 11th. I don't miss it.
It's such a beautiful blessing that two powerful men whose currency was to help others, and that's what the Jesuit expression is, men and women for others, could be that dynamic and powerful in their own way.
And those two schools too. I'm from Danvers. I went to Danvers High, but of course there's that friendly prep rivalry there. Baseball was always a battle, man.
Well, I saw Roger Day recently.
Oh, you know Roger?
I
He's
know him real well.
Great guy, and a great coach, man.
Yes.
He
had those kids pumped and jacked.
I remember there was one game versus the prep. I guess I don't know if it would have been Pete's year. It might have been even before both of us went through high school. I remember I was young, but it was a big prep Danvers game, and it was top teams under the lights, and I've never seen more people.
There were 8,000 people there. Yeah, that was Pete's year.
It was Pete's year? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because like I said, he had a few years on me, so that was probably, those were great games. I still get kind of chills thinking about those games. And nuts indeed. And I hope Roger's doing well as well. So when do you have presidents calling the house when you're there with Pete? You have former
I was only
presidents.
kidding. Yeah.
I mean, it
is that touch.
But I mean, they're doing those things. I mean, I saw President Obama do the Ice Bucket Challenge. I think George Bush did it, if I remember. Like, all these people are connecting to your son in this way.
Yeah.
Is that ever do you just kind of think to yourself, is this actually happening? This whole movement?
I was doing an interview once, and somebody did ask us exactly that. And the question was, did you anticipate this? Did you expect this? And I looked at Pete, and never in his and he was a big picture guy. He thought of things way bigger than I could possibly think, because he was that gifted. He had touched so many people in his life. It was way beyond anything we could have possibly dreamed of. So in my mind, it is a miracle. I know you miss him every day. It's weird. He's just being a North Shore guy, I guess, and I think maybe people in Texas and California and Japan maybe feel this way too. I kind of feel like I knew him just from a distance, watching his battle, and I think so many people connected with it for whatever reason. He just had that way about him, And he was a great man, of course, a great athlete, but a better man in that he treated everybody with respect, kindness, consideration. So even though he might have been at the higher heights and he could have been insulated from a lot of regular stuff, he really went out of his way to just find out what you were all about and connect you to like-minded people. He was a gift. And thank you for my perspective. He's the reason why I know anything about ALS. That's the first reason why I Googled. It's the first, all this stuff, and it's incredible. John Frates, I've seen you for so many years with this club, whether it's with Pete, after Pete, doing all the great work. Thank you for all you've done for such a tough disease, and thanks for making some time for our little show here too. I appreciate it so very much. It's so good, I want to do it again. We'll rope you into another show. How about that? You got to go back to Ipswich and get some ice cream. Yes, first. I do. Yeah, I have a bar tab going. The Captain's Ball is Thursday, September 21st in Boston at the Big Night Live. Go help out if you can. Go hang out with some people. Go hang out with John. Go say hello, right? I'd love it. Man of the people. There you go. Yeah. John Frates, thank you, sir. Thanks to May Power. Thanks to Sarah Hayden. Live at Drew's house, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Peace.